Oh man, so I've been waiting a long time to make this video because I finally get to share the amazing improvements that are now available in the new Lightroom Desktop 8.4 update. Now, honestly, this update is huge, and I do not say that lightly because it brings some really long requested editing workflow improvements that'll make your experience using Lightroom better than ever. And be sure to stick around to the end because the last new feature that I'm going to show you, it's going to blow your mind. It definitely blew my mind when I first saw it. You'll also want to be sure that you're subscribed to the channel because I'll also be releasing additional What's New videos covering all of the amazing improvements added to Lightroom Mobile and Lightroom Web in the next few days, and you definitely won't want to miss that. All right, let's dive in. All right, so I like to start all of these What's New in Lightroom Desktop videos with a PSA reminding you that you'll want to go to the Creative Cloud Desktop app on Mac or Windows, and then you can click on Updates over here, and you should see Lightroom Desktop 8.4. Now, of course, if you don't see it, sometimes restarting the Creative Cloud Desktop app works, or even rebooting your computer will work, but you'll want to make sure that you install that first. All right, so for the first improvement, this is huge, and this is something that, I've been waiting a long time for, and I know that tons of users have been asking for it, and it's the ability to apply our AI enhanced tools non-destructively. Now, this is available in Lightroom Desktop and in Lightroom Classic. And so what I mean by that, you might be wondering, well, what are you talking about? What are AI enhanced tools? Well, you remember how we introduced AI denoise into Lightroom a while ago? It's been here for a while. You would right click and there would be this enhance option in the contextual menu over here, or you can go to the edit stack and there would be this denoise button that you can click. The problem with that is, you would do that, you would apply your denoise, you would have to set the amount. And then when you clicked on apply, it would create a derivative DNG file. So, over here, you see there is my DNG file. And the problem is that it's great because it has the denoise applied, but all of the edits now will be in this DNG file. And so I couldn't work with the original raw file because I had this new file with denoise. The same thing happened with super resolution, which would increase the resolution of your image. It would create a new derivative DNG. Not anymore. So watch. I'm going to go here and you can see really quickly if I open this up, I shot this at ISO 1000. It's with my Sony A1 Mark II and the new Sony 400 to 800 millimeter lens. Now, if I go to crop really quickly, you'll see, it's a heavy, heavy crop. And what that means is if I zoom in here, you can see, the noise is magnified even more. Now remember, I applied some edits already here, just a few. And normally if I'd want to apply denoise, I'd right click over here and click on enhance. Now, if I scroll down in the detail section over here of the edit panel, you will see there is denoise, raw details, and super resolution. And when I click on denoise over here, we now apply AI denoise to the raw image non-destructively. What that means is with the DNG that I had over here, I could not readjust the denoise amount. It was baked into the DNG. However, here I can go back now and I can adjust the denoise amount. I could zoom in over here. If I want to make the denoise amount really strong, I can, or I can dial it back at any time. And so this is phenomenal. Now, this works the same way as the previous enhance experience where you can either apply AI denoise or super resolution to an image. And you'll see that here because I applied denoise, if I hover over this little warning over here, it'll say that you can't apply super resolution because denoise is selected. But this is massive because now, again, I can apply denoise here and I can continue on with my edits. And it's just, for me, huge because, again, there were so many users who were saying, I love having this tool, but I don't like that I have to have all of these additional DNG files. It just makes the whole file management and versioning issue of your photos more cumbersome. And I totally get that. And I just love that you don't have to deal with that anymore. You can now go to any raw or supported DNG file, just go to the edit stack and then enable denoise or super resolution. It's really awesome. And so I stand by the fact that this is a massive improvement to the editing workflow in Lightroom. The fact that you don't have to have a derivative DNG file created whenever you want to apply denoise or super resolution is just huge. Okay, let's move on to the second improvement to Lightroom. You might have noticed that there is a new icon in the right toolbar, and it's currently highlighted with yellow. That is the AI Edit Status button here. So if you hover over, you'll see it's called AI Edit Status. And what this replaces is, you remember in previous versions of Lightroom, if you applied certain AI tools or AI edits to your image, you would sometimes get this little blue toast at the bottom, this little blue banner that says some settings need to be recomputed, and there would be an update button. You'd have no idea what was being recomputed or what was happening, and it would sometimes appear over and over. This replaces that. And so here, I applied one of our AI tools, Adaptive Color, which I use all the time, but then I also applied Denoise. And by doing so, Denoise, which usually sits at the top of the stack, invalidated the pixels below it with Adaptive Profile. And so what has to happen is Lightroom needs to reprocess those pixels. If you click over here, it makes more sense. You'll see that we've got Denoise over here, and then Adaptive Profile below it is highlighted over here in yellow. And all you need to really do is click this Update All button, and Lightroom will reprocess the image. Now, what will happen is the AI Edit Status icon will be active. You can see here it's active. It's not grayed out, but it's not illuminated in yellow. And so when you click here, you'll see these are the AI edits that you've applied to your image, and it's in a good state. Now, there is a concept called an order of operations, and I've talked about this in previous videos about Gen Remove. And basically what the order of operations means is there is a certain order of AI edit tools that if you apply them in that order, you'll never invalidate the pixels. You'll never get the AI Edit Status button to turn yellow. So let me show you what that order is. You don't have to necessarily follow it. As you can see, you can edit in any order you want. But if you're very conscientious about it, there is a certain order that you can follow to ensure that you don't invalidate those pixels where they need to be updated again. All right, so this is the list of AI edits that you can apply in a certain order of operations, that if you do it in this order, you will not invalidate the pixels, and the AI Edit Status icon will never turn yellow. Again, it's totally fine if it turns yellow. You just need to click on the Update All button, and it'll update the pixels for you. But here, if you want to pause and just take a screenshot, if you want to take note of the order, then by all means, go for it. Now, if you were paying attention to that list, you might have noticed some edit tools that might not be familiar if you're a Lightroom user, because they weren't in Lightroom up until now. So the first one is a distraction removal tool called Reflections. And this was available in Adobe Camera Raw, but it's now available in Lightroom, and it's awesome. Let me show you how it works. So the other month, I went up to Minnesota to visit my colleagues on the Lightroom team up there, and we took a photo walk, which is awesome. And so there was this really cool haberdashery, this store that had just very, very interesting and just stylish clothing and just various things. Now, you can see I took this photo with my iPhone through the window. I wanted to take a photo of this clothing to send to my wife, but as you can see, it was midday, and so there was just a lot of reflections. So what's there to do? Normally, I would just not send this photo, or I would try to put my phone against the glass. It would never turn out good. Now though, if I click on this remove icon here to open up the remove panel, you will see that there are these two new tools: distraction removal reflections and distraction removal people. So with reflections, what you'll do is you click on this little disclosure triangle to expand the sub panel. And so you'll see that there are three components to reflections. Obviously there's apply, which will apply reflection removal. Then there's a quality control with the default setting set to best. And then there's the mount slider. So with the quality dropdown, again, I mentioned that best is the default, but I recommend starting with preview. Now, best will give you the highest resolution result, but it will also take the longest amount of time. By going to preview, the result will be a lower resolution, but it'll process faster, and it'll give you a much better idea as to whether the reflection removal tool will meet your needs. So I'm going to go ahead, set this to preview, and then click on apply. And there you go. I mean, this looks amazing, the fact that we're able to get rid of that reflection. With this slider here, you can see that the default position is plus 100. When you have the slider at plus 100, what you should be seeing is the image with the reflection removed. So you're looking as if there is no glass. However, if I take the amount slider and I drag it to the left, all the way to negative 100, what you actually see is a render of the reflection. So there you can see I'm standing there holding my iPhone, taking the photo. And so again, if I go ahead and bring this to plus 100, this is more likely than not the type of image you're looking for. You want to actually see through the window. And so what I would do right now is I would change the quality from preview to best. Standard is also a great alternative, but generally best is what I want to apply if I know that the reflection removal tool works for what I'm going for. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this. As you can see, it does take a lot longer depending on the image and of course your computer specs. But now, if I zoom in here, for example, let me actually zoom out. That's a bit too close. Something like that. This is what this area looks like with the best quality. And if I change it to preview again, you see how it's much lower resolution. But again, it gives me a good idea of what reflection removal can do without taking a lot of time. So again, once I know that it's good, I'll go ahead and change it to best, and you get a much higher resolution result. Now, I also mentioned that there is another distraction removal tool that we added in Lightroom Desktop version 8.4 and Lightroom Classic, and that is people removal. So this is a photo that I took of Trey Ratcliffe, who is a photographer who is on the front lines of like HDR tone mapping in the kind of early 2010s. And we both happened to be in Tokyo at the same time in 2014. And I took this photo of him and I thought, like, wouldn't it be cool if I can give him a copy that didn't have a bunch of these other people distracting the frame? Well, I can do that now. If I go to the remove panel again, you'll see there is people. When I expand this, Lightroom will attempt to identify distracting people in the frame. And you can see here, there are these 3 areas here that it detected. And you can see it has this overlay showing the areas that it's going to remove. So all I need to do is click on remove. And there you go. The people are gone. And it just looks like so much cleaner of an image. Now, there are a few options here. So like I can reset this really quickly, expand it again. Now, let's just say that these are 2 people that you know. I can go ahead here and select that pin and then press the delete key, and then Lightroom will not remove that area. Also, let me undo that and click on remove again. Similar to Gen Remove, I can also select one of these pins here, and I have 3 different variations. So I can cycle through them. Maybe there's one that's better than another, like I kind of like this one. Or if none of the 3 variations work, I can click on the regenerate button and I'll get 3 additional variations. And that works with any of the pins over here. The other cool thing is that this feature works fantastic with HDR. Now, when I enable this, these kind of bright specular highlights will probably look blown out because, again, my screen recording software sadly does not record HDR. It looks amazing here, though. So I think it's awesome because you can still use the distraction removal people tool with HDR if you want. All right, so I've got one more new feature that I want to show you that's been added to Lightroom Desktop version 8.4. Again, this is one of those things that's been asked for a while, and I'm just happy that we now have it here. So you can see I have this photo and there is a giant transparency here. Basically, all I did was I selected the sky and punched it out in Photoshop. And so the request that we've had is to be able to export as a PNG file. And we can do that now. If you go to the share button over here and you go to custom settings, you will see in the image type dropdown, there is now PNG along with all of these other settings. So I'm going to go ahead and export this, save it to the desktop. And now I can take that PNG file, open it up in Photoshop. And there you go. You can see that the transparency has been preserved because it is a PNG file. All right, so I mentioned at the beginning of this video that you definitely want to stick around to the end because there is a new feature that blew my mind, and I think it's going to blow your mind as well. It's not in the Lightroom Desktop or Lightroom Classic. Rather, it's in Adobe Camera Raw. It is so cool. Let me show it to you right now. All right, so I think that this tool will best serve especially portrait photographers as well as even landscape photographers. I'll show you both, but I found this portrait photo here on a stock site. And here's the thing, like, remember, I'm red green colorblind. So I ran this through by my wife and she confirmed that, yeah, there is kind of like a difference in complexion. She's got more fair skin here, and then it gets a little bit more red over here. And so what if you wanted to kind of balance this out? Well, you can do that now. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to send this photo over to Photoshop. Now, you don't have to send the photo from Lightroom to Photoshop. You can just open the image up directly in Photoshop. And then what I'm going to do is with this image here, I'm going to go to Filter and then go to the Camera Raw filter. All right, so you can find this new tool by going to Color Mixer, and then you'll want to be on the Point Color tab over here. You'll notice that there is a new slider called Variance, and right below it is an early access button that will turn blue once I enable point color. And so what early access means is that things can change, the name of the tool can change, the functionality can change. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to just kind of even out her skin tone, and I want to only do it in her face and neck. And so before I use point color in the global settings here, I'm actually going to go to masking over here. And you'll see we have our people masking. So I'm going to click over here and I'm going to select facial skin and body skin. And normally I would create separate masks, but here I want to create one mask with these attributes. So I'm going to go ahead and click on create. And you can see I now have the mask that has the face skin and the body skin. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the overlay. And now I'm going to go over here to point color. And so the way the variance slider works is you're going to select this dropper, and I'm going to sample a color kind of in the mid-tone area, somewhere in between the darkest parts and the lightest parts of her skin. So maybe somewhere right around here. Let me go ahead and also hide those two pins. And so here you can see we have this variance slider. Again, the early access badge is now blue, and the slider goes in two directions. If I go to the right, it'll increase the contrast between the colors within the range specified. And that's not what we want. However, here's the magic. If I go to the left, do you see how the skin is just being smoothed out? The colors are being balanced so nicely. Now, of course, this is pretty much all the way at -100. So this might be too much for you. You can dial this back if you want. Again, this was at 0. And so if I bring it to -100 and I toggle the eye icon here, I mean, this is amazing. Absolutely amazing. Another thing you can do is adjust the range. Basically, how much or how little of the color in the general area will be blended. So if I bring this to the right, it's increasing the amount of color that will be blended. If I bring it to the left, it constricts it. And so you can really refine this using the range slider. And of course, you can go ahead and bring this back if it's too much. So something like this looks really great. And again, I mean, it's really, really impressive. Now, let me go ahead and cancel out over here. I'm going to close this image, and then I'm going to go to the landscape image here. So this is something that affects a lot of landscape photographers, especially if you use a polarizer filter. Oftentimes, depending on the angle of the sun and the strength of your polarizer, you can get these kind of dark inverted bell areas. You see how it's like really dark over here, and it's a lot brighter in these areas here, and it just doesn't look natural. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send this image to Photoshop just like before, and I'm going to go to Filter, Camera Raw Filter, and then just like before, I'm going to go to Masking first, and I'm going to select Sky using the Adaptive Mask. Turn off the overlay, and then let's go to Point Color. I'm going to select the dropper. And again, just like before, I'm going to select kind of like a mid-tone area of the blue sky. So not down here, but also not up here. So something right around there. And here, watch, if I increase the variance, it increases the contrast. So the dark gets darker and the bright gets brighter and it doesn't look good. However, if I bring it to the left, I'm looking like over here and over here. If I toggle the preview, do you see how much more balanced it looks? This part up here will still be dark, but there's this balance over here that looks a lot more natural. And again, I can adjust the range here to include or exclude the color. So if I include more of the color, it creates even more of a balance. So if I toggle this, you see how much better it looks. It doesn't have as much of a disruptive shift in color as it does when you turn this off. Now, of course, again, you don't have to go all the way to -100. You can find kind of like a happy medium. But I just love the idea that I can use this new variance slider to blend these distinct colors together. And so I hope I kind of justified what I said earlier, that this is a massive, massive update. I mean, this really makes Lightroom that much more powerful because we brought some of the most requested features to the app. Now, this is just kind of like a small piece of Lightroom. Even though we have all this stuff, there's still plenty more to learn. So if you want to learn everything there is to know about Lightroom Desktop and Lightroom Mobile and Lightroom Web, please check out my course called Lightroom Everywhere. I'll leave a link to it in the description below. And I mentioned point color. You might not know what point color is, but you should. So I've got this video here that'll explain how it works. And of course, if you found this video helpful, a thumbs up is greatly appreciated, as is subscribing and clicking on the bell icon to get notified of all future videos. Thanks a lot, everyone.